Box office numbers are in. Let's talk Mario. What up, viewers? What up? What up? Calc Soups here, and today is Friday, April 7th, and that means it's time for a quick recap of the week in video game news. As someone who recently attended a movie, but not Mario, went to the movies on Wednesday, and Mario was already being previewed all over the country. So I was quite interested to see kind of what Mario's box office would be. Its previews are coming in at around 32 million, according to the article I was reading. And so that's a really big start for Mario, and it seems like there is a lot of excitement for it. The critics versus the consumers is always something that we need to is always something to take into consideration. The Super Mario Brothers movie is currently at a 47 Metacritic, so the critics are panning it, but the audience score is 88. So depending on who you side with or what you look at before going to the movies, I am very excited to see the Mario movie. I'm looking for more structural or maybe narrative problems. I hear that the voice acting is great and fine, that we should never have been concerned about that, although I know a lot of people were. But I'm curious kind of what the pacing of the movie's like and how everything kind of fits together. So I'm really curious. The 47 Metacritic is pretty painful, so I'm curious what the critics are saying about it. But there was a ton of people in line when I was heading to the movies this week. So very curious, and the whole releasing on Wednesday thing and then calling it previews, but it still adds to like box office weekend numbers. It's all a little gimmicky to me, but let me know if you see Mario this weekend and what you think of it down below in the comments. Moving right along, Jedi Survivor is just around the corner, and you can tell because every YouTube ad has Jedi Survivor stuff on it, or any gaming website. So you can know that they're starting their final ascent to launch. It launches on April 28th, so just a few short weeks away. But some of the preview embargoes are starting to lift, so I think a lot of the press outlets are talking about what they can talk about. They're starting to express that today. What I saw was that it's just more of the same, but better, and that's kind of what I want from it. I don't think the formula needs to change too much from Jedi Fallen Order to Jedi Survivor. Just give me the same kind of Dark Souls light, but I'm a Jedi. Maybe a little bit deeper on the lore, which it sounds like we're gonna get. I did like going to Dathomir and messing with the witches and stuff like that. So kind of curious to see who the big bad is and how we kind of work our way through that. But in the end, I just want to punch a Rancor with a lightsaber. So I'm looking forward to Jedi Survivor and really excited to play it towards the end of this month. And the previews and all that will be down below in the comments, or down below in the description. There is a new Vegas. Rumors started spinning up this week as some of the code monkeys started to seeing something called New Vegas 2 listed on a branch of Fallout 4. So when games get developed, they kind of stay where they are, and then the developers kind of branch off of it. I don't think this was intended to be public, but someone found it in there with some data mining. So, speculation started to spin out of control that there's a new Vegas coming out. As a big fan of Fallout, I really like New Vegas. I think it's probably my favorite Fallout game. But I like when they go somewhere else. I would hate to, I think it would be an interesting thing to do with the series is like, hey, this is the same place that we were, but again, but a couple years later. I know that's how 1 and 2 were set up, so don't at me. But I would be less interested in going back to Vegas. Curious what they do somewhere else. Maybe we go to the Midwest or something like that, outside of Vegas. But they have everything they need. They have Microsoft's got the brand. They've got the IP. They've got the developer. They got the publisher. So they've got everything have in house to start making one. But but Obsidian said that they're not working on a New Vegas. So I think the end of the conclusions kind of led to is this DLC for Fallout. So curious to see what they do with that. Moving right along, Resident Evil 4 is starting off to a pretty good start. Capcom announced this week that they've sold 4 million copies in the past 2 weeks, making it one of the fastest selling RE games. You know, I think this is kind of bound to happen, and especially at a time when the competitive landscape is actually pretty minimal. A lot of the games aren't hitting till later this year or later this month. Like I said, Fallen Order is probably the next big game, and it doesn't come out till the 28th. So it's got quite a runway to continue to sell. And it was a 96 rated game to begin with. And, this remake got a 93. There's a little bickering about how much they changed and whether it was too much or not enough. But for the most part, just pretty cool to see that the RE4 remake is off to a good start. I think a lot of people are asking the next question is there going to be an RE5 remake, and whether or not that should be a thing. Skip over 5, maybe jump to 6. Pretty curious to see what you think they'll do next, so feel free to leave a comment down below. Savvy Games, which is an arm of the Saudi Arabia Gaming Investment Fund, has invested $5 billion to buy Scopely. Scopely is if you haven't heard of them, you probably have one of their mobile games downloaded on your phone right now. Very prolific mobile game developer and publisher, and they've been working on quite big IPs, Walking Dead, Star Trek. So pretty big investment. This now makes the 6th biggest investment in gaming history. Obviously behind the Activision Blizzard King buying of King. There's also behind the Microsoft purchase of Activision Blizzard. And there's a couple other ones that were really big in there that I can't think of off the top of my head. But the 6th biggest video game investment or purchased or acquisition, however you want to call it. Monster Energy Drink is at it again with litigation against a small developer for using the word monster in the title of their video game, arguing that any video game with the title of Monster in it would somehow get confused, that it is somehow related to the Monster Energy Drink. So they are policing the word monster as if they own it, which is pretty lame in my mind. This is the same thing that happened to Ubisoft's what would become Immortal Phoenix Rising, which was a terrible name, and was originally Gods and Monsters, which I thought was a really good name, but Monster Energy Drink hit them with litigation, and they bowed under it. So this small developer is going to actually stand up against Monster and say, hey, you don't own the word monster, and so we'll see if that holds up in court. I think this is really dumb. I think a lot of the times some of this IP stuff where litigation is spun up over ownership of a single word. I know that this kind of reminds me of when Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red, they trademarked the word cyberpunk. I mean, at least when they did it, they said they weren't going to use it for any punitive stuff like this. But trademarking the word cyberpunk, an entire genre of game or atmosphere, it just feels really weird. But Monster's done it before to bigger companies, so we'll see if the small fish David can stand up to Goliath in this case. Moving right along, we have a new competitor with the Steam Deck entering into the battlefield. It is Asus. Asus, the PC parts, PC hardware development company, is making a Steam Deck competitor. We've seen pictures of it on Twitter already. It looks a little bit smaller and a little bit blockier, I guess, or it's got a little bit more edges. It looks hexagonal, I think, or octagonal. So a little bit of a unique shape. Looks a little bit thinner. I'm very curious, and with every Steam Deck competitor, what it's ultimately going to come down to is specs and price. Specs, I think the Steam Deck is usually cranking out on pretty high fidelity, and I've got a lot of really good stuff in there. And then price point's always going to be the important part. So your entry level Steam Deck is $400. if they can come in at 300 or 350, maybe they can get something out of it. But the fact that it's integrated with Steam, I think makes it all the more appealing. So yeah, like I said, it's always going to depend on specs and price. I didn't get my hands on the Razer gaming handheld like I wanted to at PAX East, so I'll have to keep putting that one on my bucket list. But very curious to have another entry in the handheld PC space. So very curious what goes on there. Let me know if you think Asus has a chance standing up to Steam and on their entry into the space. Humble's monthly subscription service, Humble Monthly, has some pretty good titles this month for the month of April, including Death Stranding, Rollerdrome, Aliens Fireteam, Life is Strange 2. So some pretty good games if you want to jump in and subscribe for $12 a month. I believe you get one of them, and I don't remember what the price point is to get like 3 of them, and then there's a price point where you get all of them. But some pretty good, pretty easy ways to get a few games. So I have jump into Humble's monthly once or twice a year usually, to just try and grab that one game that I really like, and I like giving money to Humble because I know some of it's going to charity as well. So always good cause, and that was quite a list of games. If you haven't already picked up Rollerdrome, it's fantastic. I haven't picked up Life is Strange 2, even though I'm a big fan of them and Don't Nod and that series. So very curious what goes on there. Yeah, there's also Fireteam if you want to get a group of friends to play through the Aliens co-op shooter. And then Death Stranding if you haven't picked it up in one of the many PS Pluses, or you've been waiting for it to come to PC, and it's been on PC for like 2 years now. So what are you waiting for? But yeah, let me know what you pick up in the Humble Monthly bundle. Saw some pretty cool games this week that were kind of announced that caught my eyes. There was one called Sunken Land, and it basically reminded me of Raft, the video game where you're trying to exist on a raft that's kind of floating in on the ocean, and you're slowly trying to collect resources and build out your raft to make it bigger and stronger and better, and all the survival stuff that you know and love in those survival games. But it was more on the realistic side as opposed to the stylized art of the raft. And it has you kind of like swimming under and like going through theme parks, and they showed like a giant carousel that you can kind of like get parts from. So some pretty cool stuff there. And then it showed in the preview I saw, it showed some gameplay where they were on land and they had guns, and the map kind of looked very Fallout-esque. So I also thought it kind of reminded me of like an aquatic Fallout where you're kind of building out your base, but you got your guns, and you're gonna have to fight off raiders and ghouls and stuff like that. So yeah, it looked pretty cool. I also lovingly called it the Water World. For anyone who watched the great Kevin Costner and Dennis Hopper movie back from the 90s, great movie. So yeah, you want to build out your base and float along and move from island to island collecting resources. So it should be good. So let me know what you think of Sunken Land down below. And last but certainly not least, I saw a game called Bohemia, and it's doing what I think is not necessarily a winning formula, but it is doing real-time strategy plus first-person shooter. So I think there are moments of the game where you are zoomed out and you are kind of controlling and building a base and calling resources and collecting resources and making armies. And then you kind of, in the battle portion, you kind of zoom in, you're in a first-person shooter, and you're trying to you get the whole humans versus bugs trope that we know and love. Looked very Starship Troopers-esque. But I always think that this has happened before. I'm trying to think of a couple of the games that I've played that were kind of RTS plus FPS. And I don't know that it's a winning formula. I think either the FPS portion is so good that, or the player is so powerful in the FPS portion that like the RTS stuff kind of takes a back seat and is not very important, or the RTS stuff takes over and then you running around shooting stuff in the FPS is meaningless because it doesn't really because it's just going to depend on numbers or any of that stuff. So It's been a while since I've seen this kind of hybrid game come out, so curious what kind of the modern learnings are. But I usually think that this has been an issue, and I'm trying to remember the game was. I don't know if it was like a Warzone game or what was it called? I don't remember. Let me know if you remember any of the old, not even old. I think this was like early 2000s, kind of RTS plus FPS. What any of those games were down below. But yeah, I think it's a hard balance to strike, and so I'm very curious what happens with this with Bohemia. But that's it for this week. Let me know if you feel I left anything out down in the comments below, where I'm happy to talk anything video game news on my Discord, down in the comments, on YouTube, or on my Twitch when I'm live streaming. So yeah, happy to talk all that stuff there. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this content. If you do, please follow, like, and subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitch so you can see more great content like this. I'll have links down below in the description. Thanks again. I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super weekend, and I hope you have a super day. Happy Easter!